My issue is about the accessing of school places for families with children with autism, and the process seems to be that the special education needs organiser will hand the parent a list of schools and say best of luck, and so that parent then goes to as many schools as he or she possibly can in order to access the school place. This could be primary school, this could be secondary school. And I know what parents have gone to 15, 16, 17 schools. I represent a constituency in the north side of Dublin on the list of schools with schools in Drogheda. Or they can access in-house tuition. Now, I don't know any of us who are qualified to employ a tutor. This is like outside of COVID or inside of COVID and pandemic times, who could adequately fulfill the needs of at-home tuition. But this is what we're expecting people to do. So not only are you dealing with a challenging situation of a diagnosis, which is very challenging to deal with, you have to almost go to war with the system in order to access a school place to yourself. There seems to be no absolute right for a school place. And I spoke to a woman yesterday from my constituency who, again, is in tears over the situation, and she has sent me a message. She says, my son has autism, no secondary school placement for next year. He needs a special school placement as he has moderate autism, non-verbal skills to be taught life skills, etc. I've been applying to special schools for the past 4 years with no success. He meets the enrolment criteria for the school's catchment area, but because his needs require more help, there's a reason. This is the reason why they cannot find a class place with compatible peers. So I know that the admissions bill or act has changed things, and that the minister has more powers now to intervene in certain schools with the type of need that has been expressed here at the meeting. But can I ask you just, how can you stand over a system like that? That a CNO hands a list of schools to a parent and then abdicates responsibility.
Mary from the University.
I might respond to that. Deputy, CNO will advise parents of schools where they're aware where there are placements which are either coming on board or may be available for the next forthcoming school year. The CNOs are engaging with schools on a continuous cycle of planning additional special class and special school placements, and those special classes, etc., are confirmed at different points in time of the school year. So the CNO is updating parents who are seeking special school and special class places as those new placements become available. We do at certain points in time, experience pinch points in various parts of the country, and we have to date triggered the legislation which was commenced in 2018 twice in Dublin, where schools who did have some space were not responding to requests from CNOs to open special classes. We had recommended to the department that such legislation would be introduced, as we knew that we were reaching, I suppose, a saturation point in some areas, and only in a very small area where some schools were not responding positively to the CNO's requests. But the CNO does support parents in terms of identifying where placements are available and update parents as new placements become available and more information becomes available to the CNO.
This is in theory, but in practice, it's something very different. And an awful lot of parents just give up. And the person I've just spoken to yesterday, and I've outlined to you today, is seeking 4 years for a secondary school placement for her child. Now, you mentioned pinch points. It's my constituency may be a pinch point, but there doesn't seem to be a policy determination from the department that there's an absolute right to a school place, and the CNO has to find that school place. It's up to the parents.
I suppose it is, parents are required to, enroll their children in the school, and where their parent enrolls the child is a matter for that parent. But the CNO does support the parent in terms of finding that special school or special class placement. And I'm happy to respond to you separately in relation to the specific case that you mentioned.
Sorry, with respect, that is not the experience of parents that I deal with. The experience of parents that I deal with is that they talk to the CNO gives them a list of schools, then they interact with the schools. The schools have all the expertise, they have all the language, they have all the education vocabulary, and the parent is absolutely at a disadvantage, and schools can find lots of reasons as to why they can't facilitate the child, and the parent goes from school to school to school to school to school, and the CNO can be a cheerleader for all that the CNO wants to be, But fundamentally, there is no absolute right for a school place for this child that the CINO has to facilitate. It's up to the parents, and the parent is effectively on their own.
As I said, the CINO will provide that support to the parents, and I'm happy to speak separately to you in relation to the case that you referenced.
Okay, Deputy, another minute because I did interrupt you.
Well, I'm just not satisfied by that answer. I genuinely am. And I think we have to have a fundamental overview and review about how we interact, how the system interacts with parents who are completely exhausted by going to war, not just on this issue of school placement, but on other issues of intervention, other issues of long waiting lists for assessment and intervention. And then when they finally try to get the child into the school gate, it can be hugely difficult for them. And then also, in terms of how the CINO interacts with this whole process, I think this is massive failing. I don't know if it's because there's a constitutional overhang, which the department is so reluctant to intervene in schools, the day-to-day management of schools, because they just don't want to do it. But what's happening here is that there's a huge number of families that are falling through the cracks because of an inability of the department to actually properly defend the child. And the parents, in defending the parents' right to choose whatever school he or she wants to send their child to, you're actually letting the schools off the hook. And the CINO, while maybe a support, it's not working. And I wish the department would accept that. And I think a reanalysis of the way the system is supposed to operate is genuinely a necessity in this case, because this person I speak of waiting for 4 years to try and get a secondary school place is the tip of the iceberg. And these are the only people, these are people, by the way, make contact with their local representatives. A lot of them just give up.
Can we have some of the witnesses just to give a brief reply to the Deputy?
Yes, sorry, Marion here again. I'd like to come in on that point, please, Deputy, if you don't mind. I think the challenge that you've described for that particular parent, obviously nobody in the department or the NCSE wants to hear of parents having those kinds of experiences. The department and the NCSE have put huge resources and supports into ensuring that children can access appropriate placements by making those resources and supports available. Where we've had those particular challenges, we have had to resort to legislation to ensure that we could enforce those rights for those children. So separate to the legislation that we've pointed to in relation to the Section 37 process, parents who are refused enrolment of a child in school can have access to the Section 29 appeal process under the Education Act and can bring that process through to conclusion, which will ensure that if a school is making unreasonable objections to taking in a child with special educational needs, that would not be acceptable to a Section 29 appeal committee when the department's resources and supports are given to the school at the scale that we've outlined today in relation to supporting those children in those school placements. And I think the practice across the department and the NCSE has been wholly in the supportive space of ensuring that schools do not put in place barriers because they are being provided with the level of teaching resourcing, with the level of SNA support, with the guidance that allows them to take in these children. And then there is a process whereby the department does support parents in parental choice in choosing a school placement for their child, but are there to help them through the processes to ensure that they can access the placement. And clearly, we don't want to hear of cases where this is not working, and we will work through, as Mary has said, on individual matters, but across the system, that is not the experience, because children are accessing school placements, and the level and volume of increase in special class, special school and mainstream supports to children is evident that the process generally is working, but clearly we don't want to see it in a specific case where it's not working for anybody, and we will work with you on those.
Thank you very much for that. And I just want to remind one of the witnesses there that she is to communicate with Deputy Ríordáin on an individual case there.
Greatly appreciated, Chair. Thanks.
Okay. Next.